All right, we're live for our random Q&A. And we're going to just take whatever questions come in whatever order they come in. So let's see what you got there. We'll see whatever your first questions are. Meanwhile, I would love to see if I could change my settings on this so there's less delay between what you say and what I hear. I'm not sure where to set that up. So anyway, come on, say hi, and then drop me a question. What's up, Anton? From Jesus. Hey, Michaela. Madan Mohini. Prisa, hey. Prisa, you got any random questions? Yeah, here's a very good, nice first question. It's from Nikki Taylor. Sky High Retrievers. What is the best way to start learning? That's such a nice question. What's the best way to start learning astrology, right? First, you'll have to search around. Like anything else, you'll have to search around to find out. See, like everybody will pair to a certain other person, like it's just molecular or magnetic in its nature. You have to pair first before you receive something. So you have to kind of just like the first step to learning astrology or anything is to just kind of open yourself up to it and see what pairs with you the right way. So when you find a source of information that actually digests, that actually works for you, that actually makes sense, that's the first step, is searching for the source of information that actually works and makes sense for you, whether it's astrology or anything else. Like in Bhakti Sadhana, we say the first step of Bhakti is Guru Padashraya, which means you got to look for that pair, the source of guidance that's going to work for you. So once you find the source of information that works for you, then what order do you go about learning astrology from that source? Maybe more than one source. But once you find the sources or source that works for you, what order do you go about learning it in? Definitely my strong recommendation is that you learn the planets first. Learn the symbolism of the planets first. Because everything else, almost everything else, is based on the symbolism of the planets. And because the planets are that active symbol, the rest of the things like houses and signs are passive symbols. Planets are the active symbols, they're the things that are moving. So they're the most important thing to learn. And my other point, so first you would do learn the planets, then learn the signs, then learn the houses, then learn the nakshatras if you want to do Vedic astrology, and then learn, that's like your first phase. That's how my online courses are organized. 101 is planets, 102 is signs, 103 is houses, 104 is nakshatras. Then you go to level 2, and you learn how to combine things. And you combine planets and signs, you combine planets and houses, you combine planets and nakshatras, and then you do multiple combinations. Planets in, you should learn planets with planets too, like conjunctions and aspects. And then you should do planets in signs and houses, planets, signs and houses and nakshatras, etc. That's how you go about it. But a very important thing before ending this reply to your question, even more important than what subject matter, how do you organize your subject matter, here's this one key thing I really want to leave you with on the question of how do you learn astrology. Don't go to step 2, whatever your step 2 is. Don't go to step 2 until you're so good at step one that you can dream about it and do it right, or you can do it right in your sleep. Or in other words, do it right means it makes so much sense to you that you see it. Just like you can look out the window and see a tree, you can see how the symbolisms of Jupiter are all connected. Because you can see how this thing Jupiter symbolizes connects with that thing that Jupiter symbolizes. So you can see the thing in real life. Don't rush and go on to step 2 before your first step is firm and clearly on the ground. Okay? I hope that helps. So I'm going to go... The way that this works is I'll take questions in the order that they come or the order that they attract my attention. So it's not an entirely fair system. It's just kind of random and up to fate or whatever about whatever attracts my attention. Or I feel like, hey, I can answer this question. Or I feel like answering this question. All right? So Bear Page wants to start with the real doozy. Let's see what you got up your sleeve, Bear Page. Let's see the next question. Okay, whoa, there's quite a lot of questions here. Eddie, I have no suggestions about the stolen phone you're about to retrieve. I don't know what kind of thing you're looking for. Lavanya asks, does Ketu give spirituality only if he's in the 12th house? Ketu is an it, not a he, but that's besides the point. Ketu... So this is why you want to learn the planets first, and this is why you don't want to go to step 2 before you've got step 1 really well done. So what does Ketu represent? Ketu is one of the 9 classic planets in Vedic astrology. What does Ketu represent? Ketu is the eclipse causer. So Ketu represents significant, sudden, or dramatic change. And Ketu represents non-establishmentarianism, non-conformity. Ketu and Rahu both represent that, but Ketu is the eclipse point where the moon descends below the sun's path. So Ketu represents everything coming in, going down, going back, and becoming like compacted and intensified and internalized. So Ketu's the fundamental thing that Ketu symbolizes is intensification and internalization. Now, it's up to you as the interpreter to see how that works with other planets, signs, and houses, to determine whether you want to take that word or concept of internalization and make it mean spirituality, because it can mean other things. So, for example, the nature of the thing that Ketu is with, was your question already knows this, but I'm kind of trying to answer it in a broader way. The nature of the thing that Ketu is with will determine whether that internalization means spirituality or not. For example, it's not just the house. For example, how about Ketu in Scorpio? Or Ketu in Pisces? See, yeah, Barry, you go ahead and ask your question. So, it's not just whether it's in the 12th house or not. What about the sign that Ketu is in? If Ketu is in Scorpio, Scorpio is very deep, mystical. It's a water sign. Some water element will bring out Ketu's spiritual side to the internalization. Right? What about if Ketu is with Jupiter? It's classic. A very close conjunction between Ketu and Jupiter is a very classic sign of people that are intensely spiritual in their moral outlook, in their philosophical outlook on life. What about if Ketu is in the 12th house? Yes. What about if Ketu is in the 8th house? What about if Ketu is in the 9th house? And these are all places that have ramifications on spirituality and religion. So Ketu in one such place, like a sign or a house, or in conjunction or aspect with other planets that have to do with philosophy, religion, spirituality, will really show the spiritual potential of internalization, intensification, inward focus. Okay. Bomb wants to know how everybody's doing today. Well, I can't answer that. Actually, I don't even want to know how I'm doing. You know what? I'm going to answer this question. How you doing? you always do differently. That's the nature of life. Like it's always one day it's raining, one day it's sunny. So it's not. Don't get too worried about how you're doing, because it's gonna be different in 5 minutes. So just keep on your train track, come hell or high water. Whether you're feeling happy today, at this moment, or sad or not. Let's see what else you got. In terms of questions, let's hope we don't pass bump Bear's doozy question. Okay, here comes Bear. She's got a lot of stuff. I think it's this she. Bear. You know the way Aquarius, she says, you know the way Aquarius is second from Capricorn? And Capricorn's 12th from Aquarius? Yeah. We know that. And considering 12th and second house associations, doesn't it sound like the bookkeeper weighing up gains and losses? Material gains and values balanced against losses spiritually. And considering these two houses together or blending them, is this something we can think of the nature of Saturn? So I guess you're asking a question about Capricorn and Aquarius. And let me tell you something. The way you did this 2nd and 12th thing, just don't bother with that. And I know it's cool, and you came up with a cool idea. Your idea is cool. Nice. You can play with that idea, and it'll open up avenues for you to understand the science. But you kind of, if you do this Bhavat Bhavam thing, which means houses from houses, you're going to wind up with more question marks than periods. But so-and-so, everybody loves Bhavat Bhavam. I thought that was Vedic astrology. Bhavat Bhavam works in certain contexts. Bhavat Bhavam, if you look at the way that it's been used in the classic literature that I've looked at, it's always to determine family relationships or things that are very structured. So, for example, like if you want to know the wives or husband, spouses of your siblings, then maybe the 9th house has to do with that because it's the 7th house from the 3rd, right? Or if you want to know about the children, your nephews and nieces, well, then maybe it's the 7th house where you would look for that because that's the 5th from the 3rd, right? That's where classic texts have used Bhavat Bhavam, to figure out family matters. But to figure out fundamental meanings of signs or houses, don't do that. You're going to mess things up like crazy. There's certain principles that work, and if you take my course 103, which is about the houses, then you'll learn how there's a horizon line and there's a meridian line going up and down through the sky. And it's the cardinal points east and west and up and down that define the houses, the meaning of the houses, and how things are mirrored across those lines. And that's what you want to look at. Now, with the planets and the signs like Aquarius and Capricorn, well, all you need to do there, if you take my 102 course about signs, this will be laid out. All you want to do to understand the sign is break it down into its components. Every sign has 3 fundamental components. It has a planet that rules it. It has an element that it's built from, that it's cultured from, it's made from. The planet makes the sign. That's why it owns it. But the planet makes the sign out of some native material that's there in that area of the zodiac. Just like Greek people made Greece, but part of the reason why Greece is Greece, most of the reason why Greece is because of the Greek people, but part of the reason is because of the climate and the rocky soil and the island nature of the place. So same thing with the zodiac. The primary meaning of a sign comes from the planet that owns that area, but secondary comes from the inherent nature of the place itself. So that's the element, whether it's earth, water, fire, or air. And then third, you have the mode of it, which means is the sun moving cardinally? Like is it at a cardinal point, which means has the sun hit a solstice or an equinox and it's beginning a new part of its journey? Or is it in a fixed movement, which means the sun is just continuing with the journey it already started? Or is it in a dual place, which means the sun is completing its journey and starting to prepare for the next? So you get those three components make a sign. The ruler, the element, and the mode. And the way to understand the symbolism of every sign, why it's got the name it's got, why it's got the symbol it's got, you know, like a man pouring water, the other one's got a hard-headed sea monster. You can understand all that stuff by understanding how these three factors, ruler, element, and mode, combine. And the nice thing, then you start to learn already how to combine things in astrology. So the difference between Aquarius and Capricorn, they're both ruled by Saturn. So they're not going to be terribly different signs. They're not going to be drastically different signs. They're going to have a lot of things in common. Any sign that's ruled by the same planet is going to have a lot of things in common. Why are they both ruled by Saturn? I'll also teach you that in the 102 course. It has to do with the distance from Leo and Cancer. And Saturn being the slowest planet gets the furthest ones. So both of these signs are going to be practical, down to earth, hardworking, stuff like that. Stuff associated with Saturn. Maybe thin, long, tall, thin, long, elongated features in the body. If there's some physical thing in that sign, like an ascendant is in the sign, etc. Right? Maybe logical or practical, something along the line. Some permutation of Saturn's fundamental symbolism. But the differences between Aquarius and Capricorn, and by the way, classic texts, at least in India, sometimes treat these two signs as if they're not even different. But the differences between Aquarius and Capricorn are because they both have different modes and they both have different elements. Aquarius is air and Capricorn is earth. So when you blend Saturn with earth, you get a different symbolism than when you blend Saturn with air. Air is about sensation. Air is tingling and it makes you feel things on your skin. Air is about freedom and movement. Air is about exchange, conversation, interaction, intercourse. So now that doesn't blend so well with Saturn. In a sense, it stagnates. Saturn makes stagnant air, and the mode of Aquarius is fixed. Fixed things stay in one place. So Aquarius has a nature to it of air, which is still air. And so the symbolic permutation of what Aquarius is all about is it's Saturn being social with the air element. The air element makes it social and interactive with others and trying to be pleasure oriented. So how does Saturn be social and pleasant? By being a water bearer, by being the waiter, by being the servant, by being the helper of others. And so Aquarius is all about, that's why the symbol of Aquarius and the word for it is aquaria. It comes from Greek, which means the hydrokous, which means the water bringer. Not the water, but the water bringer. That's why people get tripped up. Why is it called Aquarius, but it's an air sign? Shouldn't it be a water sign? The original name for it was the water bringer. So it's a waiter or waitress, right? So that's Aquarius. It's like social service. There's an interest in society because there's an air element there, but it's not like party sign and everything. It's like they try to do good for people. They try to be good for society, do service for others. They don't mind taking a humble role. They don't have a lot of ego. It's the opposite sign from Leo. So the ego goes down all the way. Whereas with Capricorn, it's Saturn and Earth and cardinal mode. So it winds up being quite different than Aquarius, because this is like an earthquake or something. This is like a landslide. It's like a landslide. A Virgo is more like the earthquake because it's the dual Earth sign. But cardinal Earth is like a landslide. So you get plowed under by Capricorn. You get just bulldozed by Capricorn. That's why it's symbolized by this monster with a Capricorn. It means a hard head. Huge horns on its head. Just knocks you over like a rhinoceros charging. So that's why Capricorn has the nature of being unstoppable, tenacious. It just sets its mind on its practical goal and goes for it until it's got it. So that's how you get symbolisms of the signs, from the three basic elements. yeah, okay. So let's see what other questions we got here. Bon. Can you please speak about Rahu and Elisha? How can this energy be exploited or tapped into in a positive way? Rahu and Elisha. Right, so I just did a recent video on Elisha. Elisha is Sarpanam Elisha. Sarpanam Elisha. Abhyagachanta prastat abhyanrityanto avastat. That's the sutra to understand Elisha. It means the embrace of serpents. Sarpanam is serpents. Elisha means to embrace. The embrace of serpents, abhyagachanta prastat, needs to hypnotize and seduce and charm. And abhyanrityanto avastat, so that it can make a dance, so that it can make the puppets dance. So it needs to seduce and capture you so that it can make you dance. So the outcome is good. The outcome is to dance. Everybody likes to dance, right? So now Rahu in Elisha. Rahu is wild. That's one of the characteristics of wild. Unconventional, nonconformist, going up, getting bigger, going out. Those are Rahu's characters. So go ahead now. See, I'm Capricorn ascendant and moon in the 6th house. So you might, if you just watch a couple of videos of mine, if you watch the right ones, or the wrong ones, you probably get the idea that I'm hard-headed and that I don't accept, I'm not like a fluffy new age to cut type of character where like, oh yeah, whatever you think is great and everything is great. I'm like a kind of like a structured, might come across as like a rigid person, like, no, it's this, it's not this, this is the way it is. But actually, once you get, my personal belief really is, once you get your foundations correct, like if you really truly learn what the planets symbolize and what the signs symbolize, and you learn that very structured and well, then your imagination can take off in a productive way. So, like, for example, if you clearly know what Rahu's all about and you clearly know what Elisha is all about, don't make that shit up. Get that all straight. But once you know what they're about, now it's time for your intuition and imagination to run free. So it's not that hard. It's like if you point the cannon in the right direction and then you light the wick, it's not that hard to watch the cannonball go. So the hard part is getting a clear understanding of what Elisha signifies and what Rahu signifies. The easy part is letting your intuition put them together. So you're going to get things like nonconformist desires. Right? Desires for things that are unconventional, because Elisha is all about clinging and being attached and having desires and wanting something, wanting to dance with things, wanting to intercourse with things, wanting to interact with things. So there's going to be uncommon things that you desire, intense, not steady, because Rahu is fluctuative like that. You can give a list of things that Rahu and Elisha signifies. One or two of them, maybe all of them, but usually it would be one or two of them would really ring a bell for a particular individual, because the rest of the things in their chart are also along the same lines. Or sometimes it might be, it's not exactly like that, because nothing else in the chart is along the same lines. Okay, let's see what else we got. Speak about Rahu and Elisha. How can this energy be tapped into in a positive way? So the positive way is make people dance. I made a whole video about Elisha, so check my previous videos when we're done with this hour. It explains how you get a positive lesson from Elisha. Make people dance. People love to dance, so make them happy. The nature of Elisha is to hypnotize, but don't hypnotize people for your personal private gain. Hypnotize people for their excitement. Parisa just asked the question, But she asked a question that I can't answer. Can you talk about the deities related to D60? How should we approach studying and learning about them in relation to the D60 and the chart's interpretation? I can't talk about that. I haven't studied it. Look at that. Leave it to Parisa to stump the Q&A. So as you can see, but you can learn something from this. You don't have to know everything. Really, if you learn the planets clearly, and you learn the signs clearly, and you learn the houses clearly, you can do 90% of your work in astrology, of any work necessary in astrology. If you put the nakshatras on top of that clearly, you can do 120% of your work. Of course, you need to know some of the calculations and things, but mostly if you have good software and you know how to set up the settings, you really don't even have to learn that. Okay, so I haven't used deities in D60, obviously. Why not? Because it's just one of those things that I never got around to learning. D60 is a very important chart. Few people don't know what D60 is. What a D60 chart does is slices the zodiac into 720. It slices the zodiac into 720 pieces. Every half of a degree, every 30 minutes, gets sliced into a different discrete area and then organized. All of those 720 pieces get amalgamated, or Vargad, amalgamated into one chart. So it's very sensitive to the minutes and degrees in the chart. So it's really useful for rectifying the ascendant's exact position. And then there's some talk in classic texts about assigning Hindu deities to the specific 720 divisions. I don't know more about it than that. All right, let's see Janvi's question. How about Rahu and Revati Nakshatra? Does it mean the native is born again to experience the enlightenment? I don't know. Why would you think that? I mean, make sure that you've got all the information that I've given you about Revati. Okay, Revati. Make sure that you got the information that I've given you about Revati. I guess I haven't given the sutra for Revati yet because it's near the end of the wheel. Revati Sutra is Pushyan Revati Vata Parastat Gava Avastat. So Revati Nakshatra needs calves to make cows. And the word Revati and the word Pusha, they mean nourishing and growing and nurturing. So Revati Nakshatra is the nakshatra of parenting, nurturing, growing. And what it needs is the calf to make the cow. So it's the principle that what you get in your childhood is what you become in your adulthood and what you can give to your children. And it's that cyclic principle of how the psychopathic nature of the parent perpetrates through the generations, or how the good quality of a parent can Xerox itself through the generations. You can't, that if you don't get love and affection as a child, it's really difficult to know how to express it as an adult. But if you do get it as a child, then it's easy to pass it on to others. That's what Revati is all about. It's not always parent-child thing, but it's the inherent nature of Revati is parent-child. It could also be romantic if you don't learn how to be open to romantic expressions. Then you can never be very good at giving romantic expressions. So that's the basic nature of Revati. Then take the basic nature of Rahu, which is we just discussed when we talked about Rahu and Elisha. Put it in there. Put them together. Let your imagination think about how they act when they're together. Rahu and Revati. Unconventional parenting, unconventional love. Not steady expression of love, but big, strong, powerful expressions of love. Things like that. Then see how does it go with the rest of your chart. You know, is there something else in the chart that's saying that there's some weirdness to the parents? No? Then Rahu in Revati, although it had the potential to indicate such a thing, can't really indicate that thing. So your suggestion was it means the native is going to be born again to experience enlightenment. Because you're thinking Revati means enlightenment. That's a joke. It's just what people think of because they think that Revati is the last nakshatra, so it must mean enlightenment. Revati is not the last nakshatra. The last nakshatra is Bharani. Right? Everybody's got that wrong. The Rig Veda starts with Kritika, and Kritika means the start. The word Kritika means to start, to activate. It belongs to Agni. The word means to start. And it ends with Yama and Bharani. Revati is not the last, and the last doesn't mean enlightenment anyway. Revati is about Pushan, the nourisher. And then, so you're thinking, well, Revati means enlightenment and Rahu means future. So maybe Rahu and Revati means enlightenment has to wait for the future. Right, but no, you got the fundamental symbolism of Revati wrong. That's why I wouldn't agree with your interpretation of it. All right. Here I noticed that Garrett E has a question. Can you speak about Mars conjoined Rahu closely in a chart? Yeah, you can definitely speak about it because we have the inverse of it right now, which is inverse is often pretty much exactly the same. So because right now in transit we have Rahu and Ketu in the early degrees of Aquarius. Actually, when I say Rahu and Ketu, I meant Mars and Ketu. Actually, Mars is like now in the late degrees of Capricorn. But stationing, right where my ascendant is. So the nature of Mars with a node, like Rahu or Ketu, is that it's going to destabilize. Mars, the nodes, Rahu or Ketu, they destabilize, right? They're unconventional. So they make sudden change. So they're going to destabilize things. So they're going to destabilize Mars. What does Mars signify? Mars is your source of energy, right? Mars is your passion, your inspiration, your initiative. So they're going to intensify or exaggerate. Rahu exaggerates, Ketu intensifies. So one important significant thing that's on my mind about Rahu conjoining Mars or Ketu conjoining Mars, watch for impatience. It very strongly indicates impatience. Lack of patience. It will also signify lack of sensitivity to the selfishness of yourself. Like just unawareness of the selfishness that you're perpetrating. Just like obliviousness to it. So it's not like you're intentionally being selfish, but you're unaware of how insensitive you are to the needs of others when Rahu is getting exaggerated. When Mars is getting exaggerated by either Rahu or Ketu. So now, of course, you got to see how does the rest of the chart talk about this. What sign are they in? What house is it in? And so on. Like, for example, if it's Mars and Rahu in a sign that mostly it's Mars that you want to worry about because Rahu is a real simple point. It doesn't have dignities and stuff like that. So Mars, if it's in a sign that it likes, maybe it's in Aries, maybe it's in Scorpio, maybe it's in Leo or Sagittarius, then maybe it's not so bad to have Mars with Rahu. Maybe you have very strong passions, very strong inspirations. That's also what Mars and Rahu can mean. But if it's Mars in Cancer, like Mars in Libra, Mars in Virgo, these are kind of weak placements for Mars, typically. Then maybe it's more like, gosh, you don't really understand how insensitive you are. And then think about what house it's in, then it will affect that area of life. Let's see what else we got here in terms of questions. How we got another 20 minutes or so. So I'm just going to zip down to the end and see what questions we got here. Lexi, what is it? I see tall people. I can read your username. I see tall people. Vic, can you speak about karmas a bit? For example, someone has cheating tendencies. Will you only end up in a relationship with that person if it's your karma to be cheated on? Or if you don't have that karma, will your good karma, for lack of a better term, override their tendency, or will you just not end up with the cheating, tempted person in the first place? You know what I want to say in answer to your question? First, let me paraphrase your question. So, can you talk about karma? Like, if you're in a shitty situation, does that mean that you have shitty karma? And right? That's basically your question. So if you're in a situation where you're getting cheated on by your partner, does that mean that you deserve to be cheated on by your partner? So the answer is that what I want to say about this is the theoretical answer is different than the practical answer. The practical answer is, what's the difference? The practical answer is, it doesn't really matter that much what you did already. Of course, I recognize that it does, and it has some emotional value, but let me just give you this answer right now. It doesn't matter too much what you did already. Think about what you're going to do now for what kind of future you want to generate. Okay? So that's the practical answer. Like, you know what? It doesn't really matter whether you deserve this or not. You're in this situation. Think about how you can work with this situation so you don't get in it again. The technical answer, the actual correct answer is yes, of course. It's like saying if the universe runs by clockwork. So it's like saying, hey, if the minute hand is pointing at the number 1, does that mean it's 5 after the hour? Yeah, it's 5 after the hour. That's what it means. Karma works. It's just one of the laws of nature, just the same way gravity. It's like, hey, if an apple falls, does that mean that it's moving towards the source of a center of mass? Yeah, that's the law of gravity. That's how things work. You don't get into, nothing happens that's not from karma. Karma is bhuto udbhava karma. Karma, bhuta udbhava karo karma. That's what Krishna says to define what karma is in Gita. He says karma is the thing that causes the things that cause the things that happen in your life. So it's the remote cause of all the things in your life. The immediate cause is this jerk that you're partnered with. The immediate cause of being in a lousy relationship is your lousy partner. But the ultimate cause is the way that you've acted in the past. And you may think, well, I can't remember it, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to remember it. That's not the point. Actually, if you could remember it, it would screw up your whole life. You wouldn't be able to keep pursuing the things that you're still interested in. That's why you're blocking things out. If you want to have a full memory of past lives and all that stuff, you have to become free from bias and selfish desires. Then you won't block out things which impede your worldview, which interrupt your worldview. That you really are this person that you think you are. You're not. But that's such a deep imprint on our mind that we are this person right now, that we are, that the mind is holding in locked vaults all the thoughts and memories that would destroy that. And you can't just like if you're addicted to smoking or heroin, you can't just tell your mind, okay, I'm not addicted anymore. Your mind has its momentum and its imprint. So similarly, you can't just tell yourself, oh, okay, I don't believe that I'm this body and this person anymore. Now let me have my memories back. It didn't work. Of course not. It's like saying, hey, I'm not addicted to heroin anymore. Oh shit, I am. Of course. You actually have to become not addicted to it anymore. So similarly, you have to follow the path of yoga for lifetimes to be able to work your mind out of its identification with external indicators of self. All right, so yes, you do deserve everything that happens to you, but the word deserve doesn't mean, so see you later, buddy. You see, because do you deserve in the first place to have any karma? See, people think that the theory of karma is very heartless and cold. Because you see somebody you know, if you see somebody homeless under a bridge living in a box in December, and then the Hindu monk says that's their karma, and then you think, God, this Hindu monk is freaking heartless. They don't feel anything for this person. No, it's the karma. It just means that's the law of gravity. That's the thing. But if somebody falls out of a building, if somebody jumps off a building, and you say, well, that's just the law of gravity. It's not. Yes, the law of gravity is operating, but that's not what you feel. You don't just feel that, wow, look at the law of gravity. It pulled this person from the 45th floor. You feel like, wow, what made that person throw themselves off the building? That's so sad. So that the law of gravity would grab them. So similarly, when an enlightened person looks at the world and sees karma, they're not feeling like, oh, none of these people deserve my affection. They feel like, oh, all of these people deserve my compassion and my affection. Even these fools who are drinking out of golden cups. So, if you are in a shitty relationship, it doesn't mean that you should just grin and bear it because it's your karma. It's your karma, yes, but that doesn't mean that it's right for you to stay in it. For example, if I lit a match and threw it on the pillow, then this pillow would catch on fire. Then this door would catch on fire. Then the floor would probably catch on fire because it's made out of rice grass. Then things would start catching on fire. So should I sit here and not put out the fire? Because after all, I threw the match, so then the next thing that should happen is it should catch on fire. That's the law of karma. No, that is the law of karma, but it doesn't mean that it's good. You should be trying to do the thing which is best, not the thing which just happens automatically. Okay? So just because you're in a shitty situation, and that is the law of karma, you must have done shitty stuff in the past. Well, now it's your duty to get out of that situation, to improve yourself, to learn how not to deserve that situation. Okay? I hope that's clear. All right, let's look for another one. I see something about bed pleasures. I have to take a look at this one. Oh, here's another one that's interesting. Sunita. Hi, Vic. According to the Vedas, do we take a part of our minds with us after the physical death? Well, what's the mind? Mind doesn't have parts. Actually, mind has parts. The chitta, the soul doesn't have parts. The mind has parts. The mind has 4 parts. It has its inherent part, which is called chitta. Then it has the part which holds the identity, which is called ahankar. Then it has the part which does the sense making, makes sense out of things. It's called buddhi. And then it has the like and dislike emotional reactions and emotions. That's called the manas. So the mind has these 4 parts: chitta, ahankar, buddhi, and manas. All of those parts go with you. All those parts, the consciousness is projected into those parts. Consciousness, which is you. You are the core. You're the perceiving being. Right? Perception. You're the perception. The consciousness. It is like described as reflected into the chitta. It's reflected into the mental core and surrounded by the mind. And the mind carries it. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, carries this consciousness, the mind carries the consciousness like the wind carries a scent from a flower. So the whole thing goes when you leave a body. But you get sticky, gooey bits that go from your mind to your body. Because there's prana, which connects the mind to the body. There's different kinds of pranas that connect the mind to the body. Then when the pranas stop working, then the mind disconnects from the body. And when the pranas become critically dysfunctional, the mind will leave the body, and the person, if it's permanent, then the person dies. And the body doesn't function anymore, and it just reverts to its ingredients. So some of the stuff in the mind is shaped or tailored to the body, right? So what happens after the mind leaves the body is the yamadutas, the pitris, push it, usher it, move it towards yama, the god of Bharani. The Pitris, the god of Magha Nakshatra, move the mind ball over there to Yama. And then Yama, with Chitragupta's help, determines, all right, this is what your karma is. These are the karmas that we can accommodate right now in the universe the way it is, in the history, in the timeline that's going on. Now, so your next life you're going to become a prince, or whatever. Next life you're going to be a rodent. So then the Pitris, they have to like hammer your mind into a new shape to fit, so that it'll fit into the next birth that you're going to get. So if it's a nice birth, then it's going to be more like a fluffing and a preening of your mind. But if it's a more constrained birth, where the senses and mind are more constrained or constricted, then like be born as a spider or something, then you're going to have what's called like a hellish afterlife, because you're going to get squished and compacted. So the mind goes with the soul. The mind is the carrier of the soul, but it doesn't stay constant, and it's mushy, much more mushy than the body. And while it's in the interim between the two lifetimes, it gets reshaped, which is part of the reason why you don't have. There's some things that you can't remember anymore about a previous life, even if you're enlightened, because the connectors to those things have been crushed. August Hindu asks, I'm going through Mercury Dasha. My Mercury is in Purva Palguni, and I am in love with my bed. How can I stop this lazy addiction? It's all about bed pleasures. Actually, bed pleasures means sex. I guess bed pleasures might mean sleeping. But you see, because you have Mercury in Purva Palguni, it's not very not as sexual. Because Mercury is a fairly asexual planet. It's another it planet, not a he or she. So why would you want to stop your lazy addiction? You don't stop your lazy addiction. Krishna says that Prakriti Guni Sarvani, something to this effect. I can't remember the Sanskrit here, but he says that everybody got their Prakriti, their inherent nature, and what's the point of trying to stop it? Don't try to stop it. It doesn't accomplish anything, he says. Just try to regulate it so that it's productive. So if you feel like you need to sleep and you're enjoying sleep, it's probably because you need to sleep. So sleep, but don't sleep for 24 hours. Just regulate it a bit, but don't crush it. If you try to crush it, it's no good. It'll backfire. So just sleep. What's the big deal? Be lazy. Not so lazy that it screws up your responsibilities. That's the regulation part. Accomplish your responsibilities. But if you need to sleep, sleep. So wake up, do it. Do whatever it is that you need to do as your responsibilities. And if you feel like going to sleep, go to sleep. Or whatever it is. Okay, let's see what else we got. Now, so this is random, so don't feel insulted if I'm not seeing your question. And also, like, the way that YouTube works with this chat window is really random. Like, when I press scroll, it like scrolls to any place in the world it wants to. All right, so we got what? We got about 10 minutes left. This is an interesting one. Yellow Crystal Warrior. I have no clue about Vedic astrology. Can you recommend a book that could help me learn? A D9 chart, lords, and all that stuff. So Yellow Crystal Warrior, when this live session is available as a recorded session, go back and look at the first question that we talked about. And if specifically you want a book, best book to begin with is my book called The Beautifully Rational Philosophy of Astrology, so that you can get the fundamental stuff right. And then the next one is Radically Deep Fundamentals of Astrology. It's another book you can get from my website. Anton Quick, ask your question again too. Do constellations what's this? Do constellations show up on a natal chart, and how does it affect your life? Mandy asks. Yeah, constellations, but in the nakshatras are the Vedic constellations. So I guess if you're doing Greek astrology or some other kind of astrology, you might use other constellations. But typically they don't use constellations; they use only the star, right? So, for example, Hellenistic, as far as I know, Hellenistic astrology will use Regulus, the star Regulus, or the star Spica, or the star Aldebaran. But in Indian astrology, we use constellations based on those very same stars. Like we have Magha as a constellation field, an abstracted constellation around Regulus, and we have what is Aldebaran? Is Kritika? No, or Rohini. It's Rohini. We have the constellation of Rohini, the abstracted field constellation of Rohini based on Aldebaran. Pleiades, we have Kritika. Spica or Spica, we have Chitra. So that's what the constellations are in Vedic astrology. They're the nakshatras. Anton, when looking at the 9th house dasha, should the D9 chart be applied? Maybe. It's such an advanced question. My answer to you is maybe. I don't know. Check it out. Does it work? It's a very advanced question. You should, first of all, when looking at the dasha of a planet, if you just simply understand what the planet represents in the chart first, that's the most important thing to do. If you can understand what your Jupiter signifies in the chart, then you have got 60% of what you need to know about what your Jupiter dasha signifies. The only thing about the Jupiter dasha is it's also going to be affected by the sub dasha. So you have to think about, for example, if you're in a Jupiter Saturn dasha, then you have to think about, well, what is Saturn in my chart? And then how does that blend with what Jupiter represents? Okay, and then there's a bit to think about. What's the house relationship between Jupiter and Saturn? What was the transit at the ingress of this dasha? Stuff like that. That's some of the more advanced stuff. Maybe this D9 chart because it's the 9th house lord, etc. But that's way advanced. Somi, what's to follow, Vedic or Western rising? Somi, guess what? You're using the wrong terms. Vedic, what your real question is really, what do we follow, sidereal or tropical? So for that, just go to this link to get all my opinion on that. Go to http://vicdekara.com/tropical. Okay. August Hindu, I shouldn't answer two questions from the same person, but what's the importance of Navamsha Lagna Nakshatra? Somebody made this up. Nakshatras are not part of the Rashis. So Navamsha is an amsha or a division of a Rashi, a zodiac sign. Nakshatras are constellations, not zodiac signs. So you don't divide the nakshatras with the amshas. Somebody thinks it's a great idea, somebody builds it into their software, somebody talks about it, and then people get excited about it because now you have 752 million nakshatras that you can resonate with. Floating wisdom, do you put any stock in the sidereal system at all or totally dismiss it for the tropical? The sidereal system is a stellar system. Tropical system is a system based on the tropics, which means the equinoxes and the solstices. The tropical system is meant to define the zodiac signs. The sidereal system is meant to define the star fields. So I use the sidereal system to define the nakshatras, and I use the tropical system to define the zodiac signs. And again, at that link that I just put into the chat window, vicdekara.com/tropical, you can get all my reasoning why and all that stuff. Hey, this is kind of an interesting question. Got 3 minutes left and I see a question from Caroline. I'm not happy with my life to an extreme extent. So how can I find a purpose to keep living? Is there something in my chart I could look at to find this out. So one thing I want to say is, Carolyn, everybody feels like that, except for the people that are just so oblivious or medicated, either medicated by drugs or medicated by the intoxicating nature of the karma of what's happening to them. But everybody feels like life is shit because we're all living in illusion. We're all living in ahankar. We're all living in a place where we've all projected our identity into a false domain. We're projecting false identities. Nobody is going to be satisfied and happy with their life right now, so don't feel like you're a misfit or you're abnormal. You're actually better progressed than the dudes who are partying and think that life is a great big discotheque. But how do you keep going? The thing is, you can't not keep going. Because there's no way to stop because of karma. You keep going. Even if you slit your wrists and die, then your mental ball just pops out of your body. The pitris push it over to Yama. Yama assigns your next birth, and then you pop up again. You know? So suicide is a great idea, honestly, but it doesn't work. So the solution is moksha. Moksha is the suicide that works, but that's also depressing. What do you mean, the suicide that works? Wow, that doesn't really exactly sound too inspiring, but I guess it is. So we're really stuck. I mean, because even like the grand solution is just a suicide that actually works. Until you realize what bhakti is, and until you get a sense for love, then all of a sudden there's a positive moksha. But what can you look at it in your chart to find a thing to keep living for? Don't look in your chart, actually. Look in your heart. Look out the window. There must be a reason why you exist. You're this grand, amazing construct that can experience reality. There must be a reason for it. It must not be meant to experience sorrow. We are these amazing, divine gods. We can experience reality. What the hell are we doing experiencing bullshit on a day-to-day basis? It's not meant for that. So that to me, that inspires me to keep going, to try to figure out, how can I get to be the person that I really am? And how can I figure out the person that I really am and exist in a way that this amazing thing is meant to exist? Like, what I'm trying to say is the very fact of our existence proves that it's supposed to be blissful and that it's possible. So just keep trying to figure it out. And then the key to it is that you'll have to think about love. You'll have to think about bhakti and try to figure out what love really is. Forget about money and all that other stuff. Health, success, fame, accomplishing your desires. That stuff is all in the realm of karma. Think about love. That's where the key to what is going to make this divine being happy. What is it? What is it not? That's even more important than trying to figure out how to get out of the mess that you're in, which is called moksha. How to get out of the mess. All right. Here I got floating wisdom. How important are the nodes in relative comparison to the tangible planets? They're equally important. Can I get a Vedic chart for my pet? Yes. You can get a Vedic chart for a house that you build. All right, so I think I'm gonna stop here, right? Because it's been an hour. Good, Caroline. I'm glad to hear that. All right, great. So we're gonna stop here. Thanks, everybody. So yeah, every week we're doing this every week at the same time. I like open Q&As. You guys like this? If I don't think of a good topic for the next video, for the next session that we have by like midweek, then it'll probably be another Q&A. All right. Thanks. So I hope to see you again next time. Have a great week. Hey, Prisa. All right. Ciao, Bella.